Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Creed 3, making $5 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $148 million and a worldwide total of $260 million. So despite the controversy revolving around one of its stars and the fact that it's apparently also available to watch at home on demand now, that was a bit sooner than I was expecting. This movie continues to do well. It is pretty much on the cusp of $150 million domestically. It's definitely going to surpass that by probably tomorrow, given the time this video comes out, and it pushes its worldwide total just $40 million away from the coveted $300 million milestone. However, I just don't think this movie is going to get there. Sadly, kind of seems like a bit of a reach. The movie is, while not, it hasn't been plummeting or doing horrible, it just has been slowing down. The hype has died down. Pretty much everyone who wanted to see it has already seen it, and I just don't see it becoming the highest grossing Rocky film worldwide. That being said, it doesn't really need to, because the movie pretty much made all the money it needed to. Since the budget was $75 million, it's pretty much made well over that doubling point and is already a huge box office success. So despite this being one of, if not the last time we see Creed 3 in the top 5, it is still a huge financial success. I don't see anyone being upset over how much money this movie has made. The fact that it's made as much as it is and became pretty much the second biggest film of the year so far, unless if John Wick has anything to say about that, but more on that later. And yeah, overall, a very solid run for Creed 3. Number 4 was Scream 6, making $5.3 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $98 million and a worldwide total of $147 million. So not only has the film surpassed Megan to become the highest grossing horror film of the year so far, but it now pushes its domestic total just $2 million away from the $100 million milestone domestically, and much like Creed 3, I wouldn't be surprised to see this movie surpass this by tomorrow. And it'll also become the third film in the Scream franchise to surpass this milestone, and I do believe, given where it's at, it will be able to surpass both Scream 2 and Scream 1 as the highest grossing film in the franchise domestically. Worldwide, I still think it's got a bit of a journey to get to those totals, but even still, once again, much like Creed 3, this movie has made all the money it needed to thanks to its $35 million budget. It's made well more than the doubling point, really, and again, I'm sure everyone is really, really happy with how well it's done. And while this hasn't been confirmed, I do hear some rumors saying that they're already working on Scream 7. Apparently, they're probably going to start filming later this year, which is amazing, seeing how fast they are able to make these movies. My goodness. But again, nothing has been confirmed as of yet, so we'll just have to wait and see for official confirmation. But even still, the fact that people are already saying that the studio is really happy and they're already working on the next one just shows how successful this movie is, and I'm pretty sure how happy the studio was with how this movie turned out. So yeah, another solid weekend for Scream 6, continues to do very well. Number 3 was His Only Son, opening with $5.5 million this weekend domestically, and that total stays the same worldwide, as while there are international numbers, they didn't really give a major boost in the worldwide totals. So this movie just kind of came out of nowhere. I literally never heard this movie. I didn't even know this was a thing. But I'm always for these neat little surprises. The fact that this was able to get as high as number 3 and able to top both Creed 3 and Scream 6 is honestly very impressive, especially for a religious film that barely had any marketing. Let's be honest here, and I'm sure it's gonna probably do pretty well this weekend, given that Easter is on its way. So obviously lots of people are gonna probably go see this movie to celebrate the holiday for that. But then again, it is a religious film. I do think these movies are a bit more on the front-loaded side, especially these ones that are much more limited and just kind of pop out of nowhere. So we'll just have to wait and see where the film goes from here. We'll see if it plummets or if it benefits from the Easter holiday. But yeah, not much more else to say really here. A neat little addition to the top 5. I'll just leave it at that. Number 2 was John Wick Chapter 4, making $28 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $123 million and a worldwide total of $244 million. Gonna be honest with all of you, I was pretty surprised by this weekend, as I thought it would hold a bit better given the overwhelming amount of acclaim and praise I heard from the movie from both critics and audiences. I thought it would be able to hold better, but no, it actually took quite a hit this weekend, falling 62%, which is not the best hold, unfortunately, and definitely might slow things down for the movie. However, this is not another Ant-Man or a Shazam scenario, as the movie is still in a good place right now. The movie costed $100 million and it's already double that worldwide. I'm sure it'll be able to triple that worldwide. I think $300 million might be a safe bet for the film. And word of mouth, despite the very steep drop this film had, is still pretty strong. The daily numbers have been impressive, and it's been outpacing the third John Wick film thanks to those daily numbers. So this film is still heading in the right direction. It's just that this was a pretty big bump in the road. I think that there were probably a lot of factors. The fact, again, it's rated R, it's 3 hours long, and they lost a couple showings to another movie we'll get into in a moment. But there were also a lot of very nasty storms, a lot of very dangerous tornadoes that hit a lot of places this weekend that affected a lot of people. So I think that was also a factor into it as well. So yeah, while this is a bump in the road for the film, I still think it's heading in the right direction. This is not a disaster. It's still doing very well, and I think the studio is still very happy and confident in this movie, and it's still really successful. Yeah, overall, again, minor bump in the road, but I think it'll be able to pick itself back up and continue being a huge box office hit. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was Dungeons & Dragons, opening with $37 million this weekend domestically and $71 million worldwide. So the film was able to exceed expectations. It seemed that the positive reviews from critics and the very strong response from audiences seemed to have paid off, and was able to not only dethrone John Wick Chapter 4, which I was not expecting in the slightest, but also have a pretty decent opening weekend for the film, especially worldwide. It isn't just $30 million away from the $100 million milestone. I think it'll be able to surpass that very soon. And while that is all said and done, very promising, the film still has an uphill battle in the coming weeks, as unfortunately this film does have a really big budget of $150 million. So while this is a decent start, it's still going to need a lot of help in the coming weeks, especially this weekend where it's facing off against a pretty big movie. We'll get into that much later in the video, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this movie can pull off, what Puss in Boots did, what Jumanji did, had this soft opening, but thanks to word of mouth, it was able to grow bigger and bigger. I hope it can get there. I have a feeling it might, but I'm just not too sure. Again, given the huge competition this weekend, I feel like it's going to affect it a lot, but also, again, audiences seem to really like it. It got an A- on CinemaScore, which is very solid, and hearing from a lot of people who have seen it, that movie was surprisingly good. And I think that's the real conversation starter with this movie, the fact that a lot of people were surprised at how good it was. So hopefully it'll bounce back from that, maybe be solid counter programming against the behemoth that is coming this weekend, and hopefully it'll get to where it needs to. But as for right now, this is a decent start. Not bad, not great, just decent. We'll see where it goes from here, but certainly not a disaster. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet, as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend we have 2 new major wide releases, and believe it or not, they both open on Wednesday to get a head start on the Easter holiday. The first being Air. Yep, that's the title. This is a biopic on the creation of the legendary shoes, the Nike Air Jordans, and I do believe there are some factors that could help this movie out. First off, reviews are outstanding. Last I checked, this movie had like a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a pretty big number if you ask me. So I think if that translates well to audiences similar to what Dungeons and Dragons did, we could see some bigger than expected numbers. Also think that since this is geared towards older audiences, we could also see some decent surprising numbers similar to what happened with like A Man Called Otto from earlier this year, and of course Elvis from last summer. And the marketing for this movie has been top notch. They have been doing everything in their power to make sure that you go and see this movie. I've been seeing ads all over the place for this. The downside, however, is the buzz. I'm not hearing too many people talk about this movie, getting excited about it. I don't even really know a whole lot of people that know this movie's coming out, really. So that's going to be the big factor, is how many people go see this movie this weekend, obviously. But I think that's the biggest limiting factor of this whole thing, unfortunately. So we'll see how it does. I think it could exceed expectations, but I'm not expecting something huge here. And then there's the Super Mario Brothers movie. Folks, we're just going to jump right into it. I think this movie is going to be huge. The marketing for this movie has been fantastic. I've been seeing tons of ads and promotion all over the place, and the various publicity stunts they've been doing, like all the creative posters and that Super Bowl spot, were all so beautiful and wonderful. The buzz is so strong with this movie. Pretty much everyone I know is excited to see this movie, really. It's also the first animated family film to hit theaters since Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and I definitely think that a lot of families are more than eager to take their kids to see something new in theaters this weekend. All in all, everything is really working in favor for this movie. Marketing, buzz, families, all in all, I think this is going to be a really big opening, and so much so that I think it could probably rival Ant-Man's opening. Not just opening, but I think it could even top that movie to become the biggest movie of the year. But we'll see if it can truly do that by how well it does this weekend, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.